In today's episode of Getting a Freelance Client, we're going to be taking a look at how I manage clients, how I organize myself when I have quotes going out, when I am actually doing work, how I can actually oversee all of that information quite quickly. Hello, my name is Peter Fisher. I'm a freelance web and mobile applications developer. Here on the howtocodewell.net YouTube channel, I've got tutorials for web development and programming on the Tuesday, and we have discussions about career advice, about freelance, about web development in general here on Fridays. This month, however, we are solely focusing on freelance and how to get clients when you are becoming a freelancer. And there are more than just 2 videos a week this month. So what do you do when you are actually working and you're being paid for freelance work, but you're also sending out quotes, you're also networking, you're also advertising, and you're getting inquiries coming in? How do you organize yourself? Well, I thought I would show you how I organize myself, and this might not work for everyone. It's currently working for me. However, I have changed it throughout my years of being a freelancer. What I usually do is use a whiteboard and then split up the work between work that I'm actually doing and work that is coming up perhaps in what I call a pipeline. Now, back when I was working as a full-time developer for large companies, we were amongst not only developers, but also marketing teams, finance teams, sales teams, product teams, support teams, and so forth. Occasionally, we would get together and have meetings about how the company is doing, what is the potential for the company in the coming months, coming weeks, coming quarters, and so forth. And the term pipeline was used quite often. And as developers, we thought the term pipeline was pretty cringy. But actually, as a business, it's actually describing what is potentially coming up in a pipeline. So it's not describing what you're actually working on, but it is defining what might be coming up in the future. If you organize yourself so you have a list of actual work and a list of potential work or the pipeline, then that helps to separate the two. That helps you to oversee the work that you are doing and also the work that is potentially coming up. So what I'm going to do is demonstrate to you a spreadsheet that I use. Usually, though, I do this on a whiteboard because I find that using whiteboards helps to simplify down your thoughts. So if we head over to the spreadsheet, it's very simple, and the point I want to make here is that you really do want to keep this as simple as possible. You don't want this to become a chore. And when you do glance at this or when you do update this, you don't want to get confused by what you've previously put on. So keep it nice and simple. What I've got here is 2 spreadsheets. One is called Actual, the other one is called Pipeline. Now, the Actual spreadsheet defines what you are actually working on and what you are actually being paid for right now. So, for instance, you might be working on something to do with marketing your business. You might be writing a blog on your website. You might be doing something to promote you as a freelancer, and those kind of things shouldn't really be on this spreadsheet because those are not actually making you any money right away. This is client stuff. So you want to keep this nice and clean. Anything in this spreadsheet should be invoiceable. Now, what I like doing is having a couple of columns. One is the client. The other is the project, the name of the project, because sometimes you might have a client who has multiple projects for you and you might be working on multiple projects at a time. The start date, so that is when you got the project, the end date, and of course that is the deadline in which the project will finish, and its worth, so that is how much that project is worth to you as a freelancer. Now, if we take a look at the pipeline, it's pretty much the same as the actual spreadsheet. However, we have words in here like potential. So again, we have the client and the project columns, but we have a potential start date, we have a potential end date, and we have a potential worth. Because everything in the pipeline is, of course, stuff that you're not actually working on right now. It's stuff that isn't invoiceable right now. Otherwise, that would be in the actual spreadsheet. This is stuff that is potentially coming along. And you should be putting anything in here, such as inquiries, such as quotes. And usually on the whiteboard, I usually have a Q or a different color when things have been quoted for. And of course, the potential worth. The potential start date and the potential end date can be quite loose. However, having them in there helps you to organize yourself for the future. Now, obviously, the stuff that's in this spreadsheet isn't set in stone because these are all potential, but it's always good to flick between what is your actual and what is your potential to see if there is anything potentially coming up after you have finished some actual work. Now, you can use this however you want. You can order this by start date if you want, so you can see when you're potentially going to be doing some work. You can order the actual spreadsheet by deadline or worth to see how much you're actually making right now. Again, with the potential worth on the pipeline, you can actually see what your pipeline is worth. So when someone says you've got a big pipeline or a small pipeline, this is kind of what it means. Now, I've said it before, but I will say it again. You want to try and keep this spreadsheet nice and simple. You don't want to be faffing about moving columns and moving rows left, right, and center, especially if you do it by a spreadsheet. However, I do know that the bigger you are as a company, the more complicated this spreadsheet can become, because you may have a third spreadsheet called potential, and that potential spreadsheet will have everything that may or may not happen. And of course, your pipeline would therefore be stuff that's coming up that has been agreed. So your actual spreadsheet is what you're actually working on right now. Your pipeline is stuff that you've agreed to do in, say, I don't know, a week's time, 3 months' time, that kind of thing. And the potential is stuff that hasn't been agreed yet. Perhaps you're still defining the requirements with your client. But you know, there's only one of me here, so I like to keep things as simple as possible. So I just have an actual and I have a pipeline. Splitting things up like this has really helped me to define what it is that I'm working on now, what I might be working on in the future. And sometimes all of this stuff can become quite overwhelming, especially if you've got lots of quotes out, you're doing a lot of work right now, and you are perhaps just talking about lots of projects with lots of different people. This helps to break that up. This helps to define what it is that you're working on, your priority, which is getting the work out and getting the work done. Having the potential start date and potential end date on the pipeline spreadsheet is incredibly helpful, especially when you're talking to a client one week and then perhaps that client goes quiet. You can then track back and work out when you actually started talking about that potential piece of work. So if the ball gets dropped by either you or the client, you can then see when you need to perhaps nudge that client again. Of course, what you want to try and do is move things from the pipeline into actual work. But remember, when something is in actual work, that is actually being invoiced, okay? So only put things in the actual work when you're actually developing it, when you're actually invoicing that piece of work. That's not to mean that the pipeline is less important. The pipeline is extremely important because once all your actual work has finished, you want to ensure that you have potential work coming through. Now, this is an extremely simple spreadsheet, but what I will do is put it on GitHub in the How to Code Well repository. I'll put a link in the description below. If you've got any comments, questions, or queries on today's video, if you have some suggestions for future videos, regarding freelance, then do let me know. Put them all in the comments section below. If you found this video helpful, then do show your appreciation. Do give it a thumbs up. Do share it around. Do subscribe to pick up the next videos, as well as all the tutorials that I do around programming and web development. Thanks ever so much for watching. Happy coding, everyone. I'll speak to you again soon. Cheers. Bye.